Hi everybody, Karen here, the Unpinned Creative at Unpinned Creative. Welcome back and thanks for joining me again today. We are going to work on the next set of pages in these fairy journals. So these are the ones that we worked on last time in the last video, so check that out if you're interested. And today we're going to be working on these ones here. A couple of journal cards, a little flip pocket, and just some decoration. So let's get into it. The paper that we're working on today is wallpaper. It is kind of a vinyl type wallpaper, so very smooth, not papery on the front, just on the back. And the first thing I'm going to do, as always, is start with some stenciling. On this wallpaper I'm just stenciling the middle pages, and with this stencil it had some arrows on it that I didn't want, so I just covered those up with some masking tape so that they didn't come through. I really encourage you to use your stencils to your best advantage, so by covering up bits that don't work for you with masking tape and just using portions of them and things like that. So to make the little tuck spot, I'm just taking a piece of scrapbooking paper and half of a doily, gluing that down. I use glue stick for the center of the doily and then white glue to go around the outside edges. It's the least messiest way I have found to glue down doilies. And then I'm gluing that right at the very edge of that piece of paper. And then I am tearing around it. And of course I am going to ink all those edges up. To add a focal point, I'm just taking a book image and unfussily cutting around it using my craft knife. These are really cool craft knives. I have them available on my website. They are styled like a pen, so the knife part retracts and the head swivels, which makes it really easy to get into those intricate little parts of the image. After that's inked and glued down, I'm adding some dimensionals to give a bit of bling to the outside edge of this little tuck spot. And that's ready to go. We're going to pop that aside to dry and work on the journal card. So this is just an old piece of scrapbook paper that I didn't like and covered in some scraps. I'm rounding the corners, and then I'm going to take some serviette and glue that down. I'm using my homemade clear gesso. I love that for serviettes and tissues. It's really light and dries quickly. So I'm just positioning that tissue to take best advantage of all those cute little rabbits and gently patting that down. I'm going to add another layer of the clear gesso, trying really hard not to tear that serviette, but it doesn't matter too much if you do. And then I'm taking some, this is brown paper that has got some gold paint on it, and I'm just taking a few pieces of that and wrapping it over the edge of the journal card just for a bit of extra detail. I'm not going to do too much decoration on this because I really love that serviette and I want those rabbits to stand out. So I am adding another fussy cut book image, inked around the edges and glued that down into the corner. And that's that journal card done. Quick and easy. Let's move on to the next page. This page I'm taking a piece of antique embroidered silk. It's a really beautiful, really fine fabric, and I'm just using white glue, a very fine line of white glue around the end of that page to adhere the fabric to. You want to make sure your fabric is nice and taut when you're using it as a pocket so that it actually holds whatever you're putting in the pocket. If it's too loose, it'll just, whatever goes in the pocket will just fall out. Trimming the edges, and then I'm taking a piece of vintage wrapping paper, inking it all up and adding a bit of stenciling in each corner just for some added interest. Folding that into 3 to fit inside the pocket, and this page is all done. Quick and easy. Alright, for the third page I'm taking a square piece of scrapbook paper, folding it in half on the diagonal, and then I'm going to measure it up against the page and I want it to be exactly fitting on the page, so I'm going to tear each of the sides until it fits on, just like that. And then I'm going to ink it all up both sides and add a corner stamp just on the inside for a bit of added interest. Once that's done, I want to add some copper foiling to the front there. So I'm dabbing with my glue stick, just really light dabbing, and then running the copper foil over the top and ripping it off just for a really cool background. Then I'm taking a flower fairy page and fussy cutting her out like so. And to add something more to the background, I just have a scrap of music paper that I'm inking up, and I'm going to glue that behind the flower fairy. Once that's glued down, we can go ahead and glue the flower fairy on. I'm just using glue stick and white glue to do that. That's usually how I glue all of my fussy cuts. And then you'll notice that the top part of her sticks out over that crease. So what I'm going to do is very carefully cut right along the crease, not cutting the crease but cutting the image, and then I will position the pocket on the page where it will be glued down and very carefully line up those two pieces of the image that I cut off and glue them down to the background page. This means that I can still open the flip and still have the whole image on the page. Moving on to the journal card now. I'm just taking a scrap piece of lightweight card, trimming it to size, and then I have a piece of wrapping paper that has a leaf punched out of the bottom of it. I'm taking just a piece of a book image that has cool pattern on it and gluing that down over the top of that punched out leaf, and then gluing the wrapping paper onto one side of the card and just a piece of plain brown paper onto the other side, then trimming all around the edges. I am corner rounding the bottom end of the journal card and then using my decorative corner punch for the top two corners. Then I'm taking a full-size doily and gluing that over the front and the back. So half is on the front and half is on the back of the journal card. I like to always add the description of the flower fairies if I'm using them, so I am tearing around the description of that flower fairy we used on the flip pocket, inking it and then gluing it down to the front of that journaling card. And to finish off, I'm just doing a wee bit of stenciling. And that's it. That's that journal card done, so I can put that aside to dry, and we're moving on to the last page. So I'm just taking a piece of tissue and using a brush with some water on it to tear around the edges of it so that it fits nicely on the page. And then I inked all the edges, and I'm using a very fine line of white glue around each edge to glue that down to the page. I'm not gluing in the middle because I want it to still be able to see the tissue. I don't want it too transparent. And then I'm taking an image of two fairies, separating the fairies, fussy cutting them out, and we are ready to put this page in our book. So typically I would not have glued this fabric pocket on before I put the page back in the book, and I really shouldn't have because it makes it a lot more difficult to get in, but I did obviously. So luckily that fabric is really thin and it didn't matter too much. To glue this tuck spot down, I'm using a good strong glue, running a line along the bottom of the tuck spot and gluing it kind of in the center right at the bottom of that first page, and that's ready for the journal card once it's dried. The second page, we're just adding the writing paper And now we can glue down this flip. So I'm gluing the two sides, the side and bottom of this, and gluing it down, making sure it lines up with that part of the image that I glued to the background page. And that is all done now. Cleaning up my mess. And then this page I'm just going to glue those fussy cut fairies onto. Easy peasy, but it looks really cool, I think, and makes a really lovely journaling spot. I love using tissue to make a journaling spot out of a page that is patterned paper. You can still see the pattern, but you can still write on top and see it clearly as well. So let's put our journaling cards in now. And then we are finished with this set of pages. Next, in the next video, we are going to be working on some wrapping paper, a wrapping paper page. So I'll show you how I decorate those. Thank you so much for joining me again, and I'll see you in the next one.